Okay? Good. My name is Ron Magat. I'm a physician here in the community. I specialize in pediatrics and psychiatry, and I'm speaking on behalf for the Summit Counseling Advisory Committee. We have a counseling center here on our campus that provides therapy by trained professionals, which is open to anyone here in our congregation as well as in our community. This is the reality that was first envisioned by our Pastor D and our own Reverend Christopher Carlton, whose work continues to be realized by our pastor of nurture, Brian Tillman. Now, I know for a lot of people, mental illness, psychiatric care, these invoke feelings of anxiety, fear, or perhaps indifference or revulsion. The fact is that there's no defining line to decide who is mentally ill and who is not, who needs therapy and who doesn't. But I can tell you, in my psychiatric practice, in this community where I do provide therapy, I'm as busy as I've ever been. And it's not just the people who you would label crazy, like the homeless person on the streets of downtown Atlanta who's screaming at the sky. No, I see doctors and lawyers, CEOs and teachers. I see your neighbors, your friends, your children. I am a witness to what lies beneath seemingly well-manicured facades and shiny exteriors, and I've heard things that will make you question our very humanity. Recently, I had a client who recalls in their childhood having to viciously stand in the way of their parents as they attacked one another. This was fueled by alcohol. I've also had a student in one of our local schools who was sexually assaulted by 4 athletes. And when she returned to school, she was sent ugly text messages telling her to kill herself. Folks, this didn't happen in another part of the state or another part of the city. This happened down the road in our backyard. These are very human stories among legions that I hear day in and day out in my practice. I see what we as human beings are capable of doing to one another. And then I come here to my church, and I see what human beings under Christ can do for one another. This is a great example today, our great day of service. Over the years in talking with Christopher Carlton, Pastor D, and Reverend Brian, we have similar challenges in our church. Look among you. We have people who are struggling with addiction, with past trauma, with inner conflict. And Summit Counseling is here thanks to our pastoral leadership who recognize the importance of not only spiritual nurturing, but also emotional support, specialized counseling that they don't have additional training for. There is a need to have this service in our church, which is a natural extension of our mission to go and make disciples, to welcome and nurture others, including ourselves. Despite the anxieties that come with mental health counseling, can we make room for this? Well, Christopher Carlton thought so. I think he tried to do things single-handedly because his compassion for those of us who needed help was so great. And for those of you who don't know Reverend Carlton, he was the former pastor of nurture, the role that Reverend Tillman occupies now. He provided life-saving therapy to those in crisis, and he helped to mentor the Stephen ministers and establish the many healing support groups that continue to meet at our church throughout the week. And he often neglected his own needs. Reverend Carlton was to return to become a full-time therapist at Summit Counseling here at our church, but he took his own life the week before his first day. I don't personally know what Christopher was going through, but I can only imagine how difficult it must have been, the immense pressure he was under to seek help when so many people depended on him. I don't know his full story, but I do know that we all have a story to tell. Some that demand to be heard and healed. This counseling center, by virtue of its existence here, is a message from our church to us, its family, that our pain is not to be hid from view or ignored. We now have 3 busy professional therapists here, but their services are not without a cost, which some of us can afford and some may not. And I can tell you, because I've seen it in my own practice, if therapy fees will strain a budget, no matter how much the counseling is needed, it will be put off until a crisis arises. I'm asking for your support to have a client assistance fund, which will be available to anyone in need of professional counseling but has difficulty affording it. This fund will make services accessible for as many people among us who are willing to courageously seek help. For your convenience, some counseling is here, but if you choose to go somewhere else, the main facility is about a 15 to 20-minute drive away, and they'll see you there. They are also establishing a presence in our local schools, so if your high school student needs help, help may be available at their school. And if you're from our church, the money will follow you if you need it. This fund is named after Reverend Christopher Carlton. We on the Advisory Council felt it was only fitting to have a fund named after him where people can forever draw from, like a well, to quench a deep thirst. Did you know that people still call here asking for Christopher? I think we can continue to provide what he offered, what Christ offered to all of us: compassion, healing, and hope. This was his legacy. May it continue to be ours. Thank you for your support.